We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. I'd like to welcome everybody out to our school board meeting today. We have a quorum, so we'll go ahead and start with the Pledge of Allegiance and a roll call. Thank you very much. I appreciate everybody attending today, coming out during your busy schedules, and I want to make sure wish you all a Merry Christmas and hopefully continued health and safety through the holidays and the New Year's for you. Joan, can you do a roll call for us, please?
Charles Long. Chris Martinson.
Here.
Michael Shaw.
Here.
Priscilla Manuelito.
Present.
Kevin Mitchell.
Here.
Chris Martinson.
Here.
Michael Shaw.
Okay.
Priscilla Manuelito.
Present.
All right,
Kevin
next item
Mitchell.
of business is approval of the agenda. I have a motion.
I would like to remove
All right,
the
next item of
executive
business is approval of
session.
the agenda. I have a motion.
And with that, I would make a motion to approve the agenda with the changes.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please, Joe.
Mr. Mitchell.
Yes.
Miss Manuelito.
Yes.
Mr. Shaw.
Yes.
Mr. Martinson.
Yes. Okay, the next item on our agenda here is this recognition. For that, I'll turn the time over to Mike Hyatt.
Thank you, Mr. Mortensen, members of the board. We're excited to be able to recognize two groups of employees that work in our school district that deserve a lot of credit and recognition at this time. Specifically naming the receiving and delivery warehouse employees and custodians. There has been an excessive amount of supplies and things coming into the district, and our R&D has done a tremendous job of getting those supplies to our students and staff, and also the custodians who some in the community have been giving a bad name or bad rap for, given that their excellent work they've been doing. It needs to be recognized. They have actually been doing a tremendous job in our community, in our schools, making sure our schools are safe. And many don't know that we have people that go around and check on these different schools and make sure that certain things are being done, signing off that areas are cleaned, making sure that things are being sanitized properly. And they have gone above and beyond to make sure that our schools are safe, and we appreciate them also. At this time, I'm going to turn the time over to Giovanna Hanks, Assistant Superintendent for Business Services, and she'll take the lead from here on how we're going to recognize these individuals.
Sure, so I'll be speaking for the receiving and delivery warehouse staff. Each staff member will be getting their own certificate, and this is true of the custodial staff as well. And then each site will be getting a plaque that it has the individual names of the employees on there, and it does say heroes work here. And that's very true. All of our staff goes above and beyond to ensure that our students receive a quality and safe education. So I'm going to go ahead and say a huge thank you to our R&D staff, Mark Begay, Patrick Chavez, Curtis Cox, Missy Garcia, Jerry Gonzalez, Sam McKell, James Neese, and Gilbert Torres. It's these individuals who travel hundreds of miles every single week to make sure our schools stay stocked with all the supplies that they need. And Mr. Anderson is going to be coming up to read the list of names for our custodial staff, and if you'll please hold all applause till the end.
Giovanna, can you pass that plaque to me, and then I want to let the board members see it.
William will be up in just a second. I wanted to talk a little about our custodial and maintenance department and some of the major improvements they've made since July of 2018. We've reorganized our group in the last 2 years, adding Stacy Bauer as a maintenance coordinator and William Anderson as a supervisor for the custodians. The last 2 positions have given us the advisory staff to coach and train our teams to improve the maintenance and custodial staff, allowing us to improve our FMAR rating throughout the district. FMAR rating is a facilities maintenance assessment report performed by the state on all of our schools. Every 3 years, each school gets reassessed. The average FMAR for all of 2020 for Gallup McKinley County Schools is a 72.127%. This is above the recommended performance rating for the state, which is a 71%. That's a significant improvement over the district's 2018 performance rating of a 50.84. The last 3 district FMARs performed this fall were Cheejodge at a 79.34, Gallup Central High at an 83.0, and Tehachapi Mid at an 80.3, for the average of the last 3 FMARs of an 80.88. This has been accomplished because we've been able to add the extra supervisory staff for the custodians, and William's been out there to coach and train them on getting stuff done. He's going to announce all of the employees.
How y'all doing?
Good.
All right, so we have a total of 106 custodians in the district, and they all do very well. They exceed expectations every day. So I'm going to go by name. I'm going to start with the business office, the business service center, and the first name's Adam Hood, Carol Laliao, and then we're going to go with Catherine Miller. We got Raymond Lee, Robert Vallejos, and Virgil White. Chi Dodge, Oscar Bolito, George Yazi, Majorie Yazi, and then Chief Manuelito. We got Jerome Morgan, Roger Peterson, Arlene Thompson, and Anderson Yazi. And then Crown Point Elementary, we got Brenda Gruber, Roy Lynch, Ed Sosi. And then for the Crown Point High School, we got Alfred Begay, Jennifer Platero, and Garrett Yazi. Crown Point Middle School, we have Edison Dawes, Frank Francisco, and Karen Thomas. And then David Skeet Elementary, we have Diane Du Bois and Benny Richards. For Del Norte Elementary, Ariel Aguirre, Vance King, Anthony Paywa, and Jason Plummer. And then for Gallup Central High, we have Elvira Brown, Larry Frank Martinez, and Lawrence Molina. For Gallup High, we have Robert Arviso, Thurman Vicente, Michael Brown, Roy Chi, Sherwin Salago, and Dion Terrazas, and Donovan Wilito. And then for the Gallup Middle School, we have Joaquin Galaviz, Francisco Lozano, Octavio Marquez, and Joseph Robaya. And then for here's Myra Mira High, James Begay, Pamela Byron, Farley Calavaza, Jeremy Etheridge, Kenneth Hosky, Brandon Harris, Kenneth Small Canyon, Indian Hills Elementary. It is Emmett Martinez, Albert Sandoval, Bobby Smith. For Jefferson, Marlon Manuel, Michael Ortega, Sammy Sandoval, John F. Kennedy, Robert Chavez, Jermaine James, Tom Jefferson, Virgil Nelson, and Daniel Nieto. For Lincoln Elementary, we have James Bennett, Raymond Farley, Jeanette Peterson. McKinley Academy, Richard Perez. Navajo Elementary, Shane Begay, Lita Montoya, and Andrew Tomasito. Navajo Middle School, we have Alan Wallace. Navajo Pine High, Marvin Mose. Rama Elementary, Adrian Lee, John McMahon. And then Rama Elementary, Flint T.
Titchin.
Titchin. Excuse me. And then Michael Edekai. Red Rock Elementary, Hipilito Resendez, Sean Salago, Timothy Yazzie. Stagecoach Elementary, Michelle Johnson, Daniel Largo, Stephen Yazzie. Student Support Services, EDC, Peter White. Peru Elementary, Tony Basenti, Robertson James, and Kenneth Johnson. For Peru High, we got Lansford Lee, Nelson Martin, Gerald Sleuth, and Ivan Tom. Peru Mid, Roger Begay, Sean Woody, and Samuel Yazzie. Tohatchi Elementary, Shirley Dahazi, David G. And Tohatchi High School, Ernest Begay, Lorenzo Nez, and Malvin Scott. Tohatchi Mid, we got Paulson Long, Rufus Nabahi, and Frida Yazzie. Seigai High, Rhonda Chiquito, Brant Burnson, Begay. Turpin Elementary, Michael Bucati, Myron Bucati, and Philip Yazzie. Twin Lakes, we got David Cruz and Woodrow Long. And that'll conclude our names for all the custodians. Thank you.
Giovanna, if you would make sure this afternoon those names get put on Facebook and social media, is recognizing them, I appreciate it. Thank you.
I want to personally congratulate and thank the folks named today. We really appreciate it. This is a total team effort, and those folks are a big part of our team and how this giant school district works and functions every day, and we really appreciate their efforts every day. Those guys are out there just grinding and doing their job, and we really appreciate them.
Mr. Martinson, can I add on to your
Please.
words, please? I just also want to say thank you to our custodians. They're just a wonderful group of gentlemen and women that have put their safety on the line for us, especially during this pandemic. And I just appreciate them. We appreciate them. And we're just very thankful that we have such caring people that are working to make sure that our schools are safe for our children and for their colleagues that they work with. So thank you very much, and we're very blessed that you guys are with us.
Great. All right, the next section of our agenda is the approval of the minutes, number 3. 3A is from November 16th, 2020, and 3B is from November 20th, 2020, our special meeting. Is there a motion on the table?
I would like to make a motion that we approve the minutes of November 16th, 2020.
Okay. Is there a second?
So,
Second. Second by Mr. Mitchell. Joan, please roll call.
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Miss Manuelito,
Yes.
Mr. Shaw,
yes.
Mr. Mortensen.
Yes. All right, the next one is 3B, November 20th, 2020 special meeting.
A motion for approval?
Second,
Second. And Joan, roll call, please.
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Miss Manuelito,
Yes.
Mr. Shaw,
yes.
Mr. Mortensen.
Yes. Next item is the approval of the consent agenda items, item 4A, 4B, and 4C. I assume there's no questions on these. We usually take care of that beforehand. Is there a motion on the table for
I
these
would
items?
like to make a motion that we approve the consent agenda items 4A, 4B, and 4C.
Okay.
I'll go ahead and second, and I just want to say thank you to Giovanna for answering my questions I had on the budget. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Joan, roll call, please.
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Miss Manuelito,
Yes.
Mr. Shaw,
Yes.
Mr. Mortensen.
Yes. The next section is 5, study circle. We'll start with our reports, our superintendent report, and I'll go ahead and turn the time over to Mike Hyatt for that.
Mr. Mortensen, members of the board, thank you again for giving us the opportunity to do several presentations today. Some of these were supposed to be done sooner in the fall, but this happened to be this to be the special day where we do all of them. We have several today. We'll be as efficient as possible, with an opportunity for you, obviously, to ask questions and get answers on those questions. We're going to start today, though. As you know, the legislative session is quickly approaching, we think. We know there may be some delay, and we're not quite sure how it's going to look, and our lobbyists are here today to give you some information on that, of what we know, at least at this particular point, and also give you an overview of some of the things that are happening that pertain to many of the priorities we've had over the years that continue to be at the forefront of the legislation that is coming out with respect to impact aid and those educational needs of our students. So I'm going to turn the time over to them. We have some interesting technology that we have put together to try to pull this off. For some reason, when you do a Zoom conference in a large setting like this, it makes it a little bit more complicated. So we're going to attempt to make sure that we can be heard, everybody can be heard, and everybody can also be able to ask questions. So I guess I'll ask, can Mark Fleischer, Jim Smith, our lobbyist, can you hear us? I'll take that as a no.
All right, we'll try again. Can you hear us? Jim and Mark? All right, looks like they can hear us. We can't hear you yet.
Of that. Yeah, I can hear you, but it echoes a lot.
Go ahead and begin. We can hear you fine.
You want to be ready for our report, correct?
Yes.
Okay, there's a few things we want to discuss. First is plans for addressing impact aid credits. The biggest obstacle in the past has been Albuquerque educators and John Arthur Smith. And Senator John Arthur Smith is no longer there after losing his primary campaign. So we're hoping that that's going to open up some opportunities to get the legislation we've been proposing through. Bills to eliminate impact aid credits, forest reserve credits, and half-mil credits, all taken by the state. There's a bill from Representative Lundstrom and the Speaker, and there's a separate bill from Senator Stewart. And Senator Stewart has opposed us in the past on this issue. She may be the new Senate Pro Tem. She was nominated from the Democratic caucus. And she told me that she really wants to get the issue of impact aid behind us, that it's splitting the caucus up. So that's a good thing. Representative Lundstrom is not confident in letting Senator Stewart do this on her own, and that's why she has her own bill, although we think they're going to be very similar. Education issues in general, I'm going to let Jim talk a little about Secretary Stewart and at-risk definition. Go ahead, Jim.
Thanks, Mark. I was just going to add on that last week at LFC, Secretary Stewart also said that we need to fix the impact aid issue. And Senator Munoz just made a sort of an aside remark saying, I don't know why there's all of a sudden this 180-degree turn on the issue, but so Senator Munoz made that comment, but the Secretary didn't respond to it. Most of the discussion during the interim has been about funding, as is frequently the case. There's not a whole lot of new education bills that have been put forward yet, but LESE is meeting this week and they'll have endorsement of legislation. We'll be watching that very close to see what they do. The biggest thing right now that I'm following is Secretary Stewart is outlining a new thing that he's calling a new concept called the Family Income Index. And this is really to make sure that the the SEG allocations are going to the districts with the highest percentages of poor students. So PD is getting tax records actually from Taxation and Revenue Department. And the idea is to enable economic disadvantage calculations at the school level. They cited an example in APS of Rio Grande High School versus La Cueva. La Cueva is a Northeast high school that's a very affluent part of Albuquerque. Rio Grande is a South Valley high school that's a much more disadvantaged school, and yet they both get the same at-risk funding index. So The idea for this family income index is to drill down at a local school level to see what schools should be getting more funding or less. It's also going to affect the charters quite a bit because there's charters that are chartered under a school district, like for instance APS, and so there's some charter schools like Ames, which is in a very affluent area of town and gets the same at-risk index that that Rio Grande High School does, and they certainly don't service the same students. The only other thing that I thought you guys might be interested in was insurance costs are going to go up. I'm sure everybody's concerned about that. And right now they're saying that they want the insurance costs to be borne solely by the school districts. I think that's really all we have as far as individual bills or funding issues. Superintendent Hyatt asked me about Secretary Stewart in particular as to whether or not it looked like they were going to try to get more power to the various cabinet secretaries. And I was told that yes, in fact, not particularly Secretary Stewart, but that they try to keep each cabinet secretary to have the most power that they can in a case of a crisis like we're in now. And that after the crisis is over, that moves that power back to the legislature and to the courts. But in the short term, we are looking at the secretary wielding a fair amount of power. So Mark, do you have anything else?
Not on those issues. If you have any questions, let us know, Mike, or if any members do. Next, I'll talk about the plans for the next legislative session. They're meeting at 1 o'clock today, which is right now the Legislative Council services to kind of determine, I guess you'd call it a tentative final decision on how this session is going to be handled. Some legislators would like to go in for 2 weeks, do a budget, recess, and come back in May or April. Others want to go in and have a regular session. Others want to have a virtual session for the first month and then come in for a floor session. They may use the convention center. They're talking about renting it to use for committee rooms, committee meetings. No one's going to be allowed in the Capitol except the security, staff, and legislators. And the convention center would be a place for legislators to meet with the public. So they're going to be finalizing those plans today, and we'll let Mike know what their initial plans are. They're still subject to change, but I fear with the Thanksgiving rush and the Christmas rush on advancing COVID that they may decide to slow the session down a little bit. Anything you want to add on that, Jim?
No, I think that covers it very well.
The other thing we wanted to talk about are state finances. They're better than anticipated. They expected doom and gloom, and it's actually done very well. They're up about $160 million over last year in revenues. A lot of that is because the stimulus money helped generate a lot of grocery receipts tax and others, the CARES money. The oil price is up to over $46 a barrel for, which was down to substantially for a while. And federal stimulus money, they're expecting some more this next few weeks, if not before Biden takes office right afterwards. So that should help keep the economy stable for a few more months as well. I think we kind of all fear that there's going to be a big drop in grocery receipts tax with hotels and tourism and restaurants and hotels not having much activity. So we'll see what happens. But right now things are on an okay view. Any questions you may have? Or comments, Mike?
1 second. Yeah, Priscilla does.
Yate.
Yata.
Echo is weird. My question is, you were talking about the tax records that PED is researching. Why? I mean, they're kind of reinventing the wheel. Why don't they use the poverty levels that we see on either the census counts or anywhere in those areas? We know that we're in a poverty area here in McKinley County with a high poverty rate. You know, what are they trying to do with trying to research that on their own now with tax?
I think they're just trying to, and thank you for the question, I think they're trying to drill down to just at a school level. So for instance, you may have students that come to one of your schools that lives in a different part of the district. And I'll give you the example of in Albuquerque in APS, some student that may go to La Cueva, which is an affluent part of town, they may actually live outside that district and live in another part of Albuquerque. Same thing with Gallup. I mean, you may have students that are coming from Crown Point coming to a different school. And so I think they're just trying to, I mean, it's just a concept right now. Honestly, Secretary Stewart gave just those examples of La Cueva and Rio Grande and didn't have any other data, which is a little frustrating because as I spoke with Giovanna earlier today, I don't know how that's going to impact various school districts. I mean, it's, you know, they're just trying to get it as accurate as they possibly can. But you're right, I don't know exactly why they're not using the census data that you already have.
Hello? Okay, there it goes. Thank you. The other question or comment I had was, we used to get together with our lobbyists and our local legislators to work on our priorities. And I think that's very important that we continue to do, maybe even virtually. I know it may be too late now for this one, but I think just keeping that in mind for the future, that we need to continue that process.
I think we could still do that this year. I thought it was important to wait till after they make their initial decision as to what the session is going to look like. One of the things I didn't mention is they've asked every legislator to limit their bills to 5 per legislator this session to kind of keep the number of bills down. And they're going to decide today, but very many bills may only get 1 committee hearing if they're having this abbreviated session like we're talking about, where they're going to do the first 30 days in virtual and then come to Santa Fe for the floor session. So we'll know that more after today. But if you'd still like to have us put together the legislators that represent your school district, we will be glad to do that. And I think we can still do it after the first of the year, right after New Year's, if you want to do that. I have talked to them about wanting to do it. They've all seemed receptive.
Just a few more things really quickly. We have been, I'm not sure where Secretary Stewart's interest in changing the at-risk formula is using the family income index, but we have been working with some charters in Albuquerque about revamping that part of the funding formula, where we are using Yazi Martinez inputs, I guess you could call them, to make sure that we have a more accurate reflection of at-risk students. And so it's possible, because the census information isn't always perfect. We'll look at the data to see which one of these options actually gives more favorable income as far as for the district for at-risk students. That's hard to talk with this. I just wanted to add that. There's
Yeah,
nothing else. Thank you.
I was just going to mention that when you asked about the income index, I also checked with Rachel Gudgel at LESC this morning, and she has not gotten anything updated and doesn't expect anything before this week's LESC meeting. So I feel like she's kind of as much in the dark as we are about that. She's not expecting the secretary to have any new data this week.
Thank you. It's a very inefficient part of the formula. Zuni, for example, probably one of the most impoverished areas in the state, is not considered as at risk as most school districts in the state. So there definitely needs to be some changes. Thank you. I think we're done, unless you have one last parting comment.
I'll send you an email, Mike, and if we'd like to set up a meeting the first or second week of January, a Zoom meeting with our legislators, we can discuss that. And let's put together an agenda and things we want to discuss with them. But I'll send you an email regarding that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Merry Christmas, everyone. And hope 2021's a lot better than 2020. Thank you.
Talk about today was students and their education at this particular period of time where we are doing remote online learning. So we have Mr. Wade Bell and maybe some others as part of the curriculum instruction team and I believe a staff member, at least one, a teacher, to help give a presentation on online learning and give you some insight on what's happening in our schools right now. And so I'll turn the time over to them.
So we have three individuals that are going to speak today. Wade Bell will go third. And then we'll have Eric Schildrop from Gallup High, correct? And he teaches science and engineering. And then we have Jacqueline Gorman. And what grade level do you teach? Fourth grade from Catherine Miller Elementary, Catherine A. Miller. And they're going to just talk to you about some of the successes and challenges of online learning. And on Eric's presentation, he's going to actually show you a couple classroom observations, and one's about 1 minute, one's about 2.5 minutes. And so we'll bring up Ms. Gorman first. Thank you.
Yate, she Jacqueline Gorman in Shia, Hanagan in Shlo, they cheating washes chain, Twiggling, the she, Ashkanzai, the Shanella. Hello, my name is Jacqueline Gorman. I am a fourth grade teacher at Catherine A. Miller Elementary School, and I am excited to take part in this board meeting. Let's see. Okay, just an introduction. This is our new norm in education. We have been learning new ways to educate our children, and the approaches have had hurdles. With new approaches to the usage of technology has pushed us to innovate further. We continue joint efforts. We are making instruction more accessible. With changes of the instructional mode, we have learned to adapt to the new norm. Dependent on technology. Technology was issued to all students for accessibility. Teams is our common ground for instructional delivery. Uses of multiple learning platforms are added on for increased engagement. For example, Padlets, Whiteboard Chat, Seesaw, Edpuzzle, Screencast-O-Matic, and Microsoft Forms. Appropriate equipment were issued out to each student, which included a laptop or an iPad, charging cord, T-Mobile hotspot, and then students with IEPs received headphones with microphones. Okay, conditional internet connections. The pros of our internet connections, this new remote learning, is that we have the scheduling flexibility, more comfortable learning environments, learning computer hardware and its uses, exploring employable skills. Cons, genuine student engagements, internet access to different geographic locations, continuous outside distractions, unlimited access to information online, limited supervision. Students are learning at a slower rate. Okay, provided trainings to alleviate. Empower consultants are utilized to train or inform, plan and present. Trainings were provided in the overall team features, learning platform availability and their features, and also SEL support, social emotional learning support. Empower consultants plan with each grade level and content area and demonstrated in live classes. A representative from NCCE is available to answer questions on Teams. We are able to meet with our representatives through Teams. Instructional coach, presentation on accessible resources on Wanders and phonics instruction. Staff members in our buildings have their knowledge in different areas for references. For example, synergy, technology, SEL, and data. Professional and personal growth. The online approach to teaching has deepened through utilizing different learning platforms, through changing my teaching tactics to include presenting through technology, through navigating the unknown, taking an optimistic and flexible outlook, taking our instruction at an appropriate pace for remote learning. Thank you.
That was great. Thank you. I have one question for you. Actually, two questions. You ever see how many kids are out in the parking lot trying to like get internet or anything like that, or is service not a big deal, big concern out in Church Rock?
At our location, services is a huge deal. So what we've been doing was, what we've been telling students was there is access to hotspots with bus services.
Yeah.
So bus services would be parked at a certain location, so they're able to access that. Also, each individual student has a T-Mobile hotspot, and they also have connections through chapter houses, and we also have that option where you come to the parking lot to access the internet.
You see a lot of kids out in the parking lots?
I do see a few, but not a lot.
Mm-hmm. My other question, so I mean, it's obvious to see, from your presentation, the lessons, that you've learned and had to come up with new tactics and stuff. When we go back to in-person learning, in-person school, like normal, like it always was in the past, I mean, you think you'll take any of this stuff with you, or are you just going to throw it away and go back to regular in-person school, or is there stuff that you've learned that you think will be a better way in the future?
Like I had mentioned in the slide, it was a big learning curve for myself. A lot of applications that we've accessed is something that I am knowledgeable in now, so I'm able to bridge that to my in-person learning. So I'll be able to use a lot of learning apps that I've learned so far into in-person learning.
Mr. Mortensen, I have a question. Thank you for your presentation. And then, ADG Shan, language and culture, ADG Shan, virtual. Go.
We have set up specials and home language through remote learning through Ed Puzzles. So they've been recording themselves through Edpuzzle to present their lessons. But of course, we still have that barricade where we have to visualize ourselves as a student and know that they can't be online so long during a day. They have to have breaks. So we've been including brain breaks and different avenues so that they are able to take a break from looking at technology all day.
Any other questions?
I just wanted to ask, and as far as like the grading process, do you see a decrease as far as our children's learning, as far as their grades? Say a student who used to be maybe a A/B student last year, and with this virtual learning that they're going through, their grades dropping, and do you see that affecting how they're learning and their grades?
Just like any presentation of lesson content, there are some students that will have the strength to use technology as a positive, and there are some that do have technology as a limitation. So we do see some decrease and increase in students' performances. So, grading, we've just been applying, we've just been trying to be innovating different ways to input grades that reflect on what students are able to do online. And we've learned that taking our content presentation at a slower pace and more digestible size for them was something that we've taken approach to.
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Really appreciate your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Superintendent Hyatt, members of the board. I appreciate this chance to visit with you today. My name is Eric Shildrop. I'm a science and engineering teacher at Gallup High School. This is my 7th year teaching at Gallup High School. Today I wanted to just share some of the challenges and successes we've been experiencing in remote learning. Last few weeks we surveyed all of our students at Gallup High, and the first question was, how are you feeling? It's really hard to judge that in this online world. And I was very surprised by the results. So blue is excellent. Students reporting they feel excellent. Orange is good. Green is fair, indifferent. And I kind of expected this to flip. I mean, if you look at not good, I expected a larger piece. So, some encouraging news. Now, for sure, there's some students who didn't respond, and I don't want to minimize the hardship that a lot of people in our community are feeling right now. But this was a bit of encouragement and something maybe we can build on and keep going. Give us a boost. So that's how students are feeling. Next slide. The next question on the student survey was, what's the hardest thing about learning using Teams? And again, I think something encouraging here. The majority of students say the hardest thing for them is asking questions in class and paying attention to the teacher. Those are very familiar struggles as a teacher. I mean, that's nothing new. I mean, that's the same problem we've faced for the 7 years I've been teaching. So while it is a struggle, at least it's something we're familiar with. There's strategies to work on that, something we can build on again. We were expecting more, the technology's hard, the connections are not working, we don't know how to turn in assignments. That's what I was expecting, but that was not the dominant problem. That's another surprising takeaway from our students here, and maybe something we can build on. So the next slide. So some of the challenges for teachers, and I'm going to just focus on instructional challenges aside from everything else. What's hard about teaching remotely? How do you keep your students engaged, and how do you check for understanding? It's hard to read the room. As a teacher, you watch the body language, you look for the nods, and you watch their eyebrows. Well, we can't do that this way. So how do we do it? It's taken some experimentation, but I think we're getting better at it, and I have a few strategies I thought I'd share with you. So next slide, please. So here's an example of something that's working that I'd never done before, but it's going pretty well. So what you see on the left is an example of something that I'm teaching direct instruction. I'm teaching them about mechanical advantage of levers. I'm explaining, I've got a graphic there, and then I'll ask them a question. What happens to the mechanical advantage as the effort force moves closer to the fulcrum? Then I require every student to answer it in the meeting chat, and I have them hold their answer until I say submit, so they all submit at once. And I insist that every student answer. So I wait, and usually they've gotten the hang of it now, so boom, 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 they all come in. And I can tell from their answers, did they get that or not, and it's working pretty well. And quite a few teachers are using this now. Just like we would in the real classroom, we're finding a way to get a response from every student, and we build it in frequently, because that's the key, is frequent back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Thank you. Next slide. So there's a couple of videos here. One is a government class where a teacher has students interacting on a collaborative document live in class. And then the next one is a little piece of my direct instruction and questioning the students.
So I'm going to share this link, and I want you guys to go in and highlight the ones that you see that are freedoms that we have today. So I want to see everyone do this. Go to the chat, go to this editable link for the PowerPoint, and on this slide, I want you to highlight freedoms that we have today in the United States. Because this is from 1689. So I want you to go to slide 8, highlight a freedom, just one per person, right? Because I want everyone to get to hopefully do one. Highlight a freedom that you see today. Freedom of speech, absolutely. And we have freedom of speech everywhere, not just in Parliament. I see freedom to bear arms. Yes, that is our Second Amendment freedom. Freedom to elect members to government, absolutely. You guys are missing some. What other ones do we have? We sort of have freedom to petition. We don't have a king, but we have freedom to protest. Freedom from cruel and unusual punishment. Yes, absolutely, we have that. There's one more that we have. Can anyone fine you? Can they consequence you or give you a fine without giving you a trial? No, right? So that's, yeah, freedom from fines and forfeitures without trial. Beautiful.
Students are interacting with the document, and she can see how they're responding to the lesson. And the reports I get from students is they enjoy that. They're like, that was fun. I like that. You know, and they really don't like unmuting. At their age, they're a little hesitant to unmute and put themselves out there. So this gives them a way to interact without having to unmute in a very sort of embarrassing way for a lot of students. And, here's another example.
Your effort force. So mechanical advantage equals resistance force divided by effort. Go ahead and do that. Give you 20 seconds, and then I'll ask for everyone to put their answer in the chat. So 20 seconds. I'm doing it myself. Okay. What do you get? Throw it in the chat. Okay, I'm seeing good answers here. We got Braun, Elias, Levesque, Byron, Trayan, Dylan. Looking for Colin and Marcus. There you go. Hopefully Colin's coming in here. Now, you guys did good. You took the resistance, which was 196, and you divided it by the effort, which was 98, right? And that gives you 2. Now, I'm seeing a little uncertainty about, is it little n? Is it NW? Is it newtons? What is it? It's actually nothing. No units, okay? A mechanical advantage has no units.
On the right is a CAD assignment where students were designing a barn and, again, posting their designs to a collaborative document and reviewing each other's work and commenting. Next slide. Here are some custom CAD designs that some students of mine have created. And these are students who've never done engineering or design or CAD before, and they're learning. This is high level work that they're producing, and they're submitting it and sharing it with their peers for review. So working with the online tools we have, and they send me the file and then I print them on the 3D printer. And so the star is this one here. This was a project where they were taking on the role of an engineer working for a backpack company that had to design custom tags for a backpack company, and so it was a whole thing. But the end result is they create these 3D printed designs of their own. So some examples, and the feedback has been good. They're enjoying it. Next slide. Here's some professional quality CAD drawings that students are creating, and again submitting for peer review with their classmates. Next slide. Finally, some other successes. We've been able to connect students in new ways. We've had meetings with Gallup and Myanmar students together in ways we've never done before. We had a panel discussion with doctors from our local hospital, GMCS, with 130 students in attendance, and the students asked dozens of questions. We finally had to end the meeting because it was running so long. The students were so into it, I felt a little bad for our guests. But they report back that it was a thrill for them too. Engineers from Sandia Lab have met with us. Again, meetings ran much longer than scheduled because of students were so engaged. And the student and staff growth in 21st century computer skills has been exponential. And I think you all know this, that computer skills are not like a side subject anymore. They're survival in professional life. So we've seen the growth in so many ways in that area. So thank you. Thank you. Breathing through these things is not always fun. So a little winded, but thank you.
Thank you for your time today. That's an awesome presentation. That's pretty neat what your kids are doing. So I have a quick question for you. I mean, I'm assuming that you didn't become a teacher because you don't like interacting with kids and stuff like that. I mean, we saw your survey results for the kids. What's your general sense with teachers and yourself? Maybe relate, what it's been like for you
with that lack of interaction. It's kind of hard when they're on mute and you just have like little initials across the board there or something like that.
Yeah.
What's that like for teachers?
Yeah, I think that's just right. We miss that getting to know the kids. You know, when I think of the years I've had with my students, I remember them just for who they are, and I don't feel like I will remember this group in the same way just because I've never even seen many of them. So that's hard, and I know it's hard for the students too. The connections we make. So yeah, we miss those connections, and it's hard to gauge your success when it's just quiet, you know. So yeah, that's hard. It's very hard. I'm looking forward to seeing the kids again when the time is right. So yeah.
Well, you've been at Gallup High a lot longer than I was.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Luckily.
As a student,
yeah.
that's good news.
It almost took me 7 years. Any other questions?
Thank you, Mr. Martinson. I think my question is, this would be interesting. And first of all, I want to say thank you for that first question you asked the students.
Yeah.
You know, how are you? I think we don't ask that very many that in this virtual world, and our kids are struggling, some of them. And just to get that question given to you, you know, you get to actually answer it, you know, and not even say who you are, but really tell how you really feel. Yeah. And I think the 8 that were up there that are struggling, you know, I feel really bad for them that they're not doing well.
Yeah.
And I wish we could reach out to them too somehow, but I think that's important to ask those kind of mental health questions to our children at times, our students, I'm sorry, at times. And I don't know if there's a similar survey we can give to our full GMCS student body and see how they're doing. Yeah. And I think and seeing what their struggles are. If we haven't yet, I don't know if we've done that yet, but I think something like that would be great to do, even to our staff. I mean, we don't know how much they're struggling, and I know some of them are. You know, we hear different ones that need help with different things, and you know, they reach out to us at times, and you know, it just takes that one, you know, entity to make us say, yeah, they need help. So just wanted to mention that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I agree. I think that more of that is better for sure. Thank you. Yeah.
Great. Any other questions? All right, we're all set. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. We really appreciate the both of you coming in and putting yourself kind of in the hot seat, right? Mm-hmm. Those weren't questions that were given to them ahead of time, but they have been very helpful in giving us an idea of what's happening in the schools. We really appreciate that. And again, I think we said this the last couple of meetings, but we're just very impressed with not only you, but our teachers that have really adapted quickly. As we go online and watch the different things that they're doing, we're very impressed on how quickly the learning curve has been tackled. And I'm excited to see, I think it stems off of Mr. Mortenson's question, is there's going to be some things that we're going to be able to take from this and make us better educators and better teachers and better instructors for our students. And that's exciting, given all the negativity that surrounds this time in 2020. Hopefully there's some good things that come out of this that we can be better and do better for our students by. Mr. Bill?
Thank you, members of the board and Mr. Hyatt. I want to wish you all a Merry Christmas before we get started, and hope your holidays with your families are just absolutely wonderful. Mr. Harasic had us trained all in Microsoft Teams about 3 to 4 years ago, and I remember thinking, oh, this is another fad, until this year. And I know everything, all the insides, the outsides of this platform now that I never knew I would ever want to know. But we're going to be talking about Microsoft Teams and just the virtual learning that's been going on for this first semester. And I always like to start with plenty split in those eyes, because this has been a really tough year, and I've had to give those eyes to a couple people this year just to get things going. So we're going to start with the good. First thing is every student in GMCS has an iPad or laptop that they can connect to in the classroom. Our technology, we have a staff of about 15 technology individuals now. We processed about 10,854 laptops at the beginning of the year and throughout the semester, because we've had kids going in and out. And so this is not stopped. We are always processing a new laptop or a new iPad, probably every day at every school. And one thing also is every teacher has a new laptop this year or last year. They got their new, so all the technology that are in our students' hands and our teachers' hands are fairly brand new. The district network has performed adequately and provided connectivity to all students in the schools, and that's a caveat. It's happening in the schools, not necessarily outside of the schools. And basically, due to hybrid and distance learning, we do not have bandwidth issues, which we've seen in the past. We've basically at the elementary had about 20% of our school population. At the high schools, much less than that. So we haven't seen the big bandwidth push that we would see inside the school, but we're prepped for that. All of our mid-schools were set up to have about 30 kids in the classroom this year. As we weren't expecting to have this pandemic this year, we're working on E-rate funding for the next couple years to get that level at the elementary schools in there. Outside of our schools, it's basically the wild, wild west. Some places you can get access to internet, some places you cannot. I've had a number of parents call me about internet specifically, and there's just certain areas there is no way, specifically right by the Red Rocks, by in between, behind Continental Divide. I went to somebody's house and actually looked, there's rocks all around their house. There's no way that internet service can get to that house. And so those students made a choice of taking their kids to school. They had a student with special needs, and they were able to take them to through elementary. We were able to get the T-Mobile hotspots. The reason we chose the T-Mobile hotspots were they were cost effective. They were about $20 per piece. Every other company was over $60 to basically $70 per piece. So $2 million for the T-Mobile hotspot, $6 million for the AT&T hotspot. So there was a cost there. This option does not work well in the Crown Point, the Tohatchee, and the Navajo areas, and anywhere around the Red Rocks. I've had a number of parents explain that to me, and that's when we have to make that choice. We either go to the school if that's an option, or to one of the bus stops, or in the parking lots. And I have seen in some of the county schools, kids in the parking lot, very few inside the city. I do have Gallup Central, and every now and then I do see a student sitting in the parking lot at Gallup Central just to download their work. GMCS wants to get students in classrooms that have no internet access options at home. And that's why we have those wireless connections on school bus, and we've extended the wireless networks outside of the school, but there's only so far we can go with that. Efforts, and this is something that's very important. Effort is apparent everywhere in GMCS. Our district leaders, our school leaders, our teachers, our support staff have done a phenomenal job in trying to learn these platforms and to give the students the best they can as they've been learning to use it themselves. This has been a learning year for everybody. We were able, and one of the blessings of this is, for example, I had a number of teachers at Turpin Elementary get quarantined, so I was able to easily move those students virtually into Jefferson Elementary, and vice versa. We have the same issue at Jefferson and Turpin. The schools, the teachers have been very willing to let other students join their classrooms, and it's been very little effort on their part, and the principals of the school that's sending the students are the ones that are keeping online to make sure that their students are are involved. So that's something we've never been able to do in the past. Someone taught there, they're able to just do their shit, and it takes them 5 minutes to do that, and then you have kids in another school. And pretty perfect, a seamless way. There is also bad with this. Technology eats money. And in the third bullet, I'll talk a little bit about that, but it's always changing and getting more advanced. At the elementary, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, we were not able to get the new Dell or the iPads. And so we were able to refer the Surface Pros, the Lenovo's that we've had at all the schools, and we were able to give them those. It takes a lot of time to get these items to work. Elementary has taken effort to work this year just because of the older computers. But our leadership team is already looking into how to replace those next year. They've already talked to Mr. Stanley and myself about getting us funding so we don't have to worry about those computers next year, and we can actually have everything on the same page. And that's really going to help us when the students come back in the future. The ugly, the care of technology. And this is a picture of the first computer I saw that was damaged. It was from the McKinley Academy, and the parent told me the kid dropped it off the kitchen table. It had tire marks on it. I know it didn't drop on there. But we are very understanding. There's a lot of stress on these kids. So approximately 65 iPads have been broken this year and 120 Dell laptops. Most of them have been simple things such as leaving a pin and closing the laptop and the screen gets broken. Dell has a great warranty. We sent them all back, and for as part of our warranty plan, we've gotten them all back fixed, and we're returning those to students, and we also have replacements. So when their laptop is broken, we just replace it out with another laptop. When theirs comes back in, we just trade it back out and they get the original laptop back. And so that's been really helpful. But as you see, if you go to the next slide, these laptops, this is the same laptop, this is just the opposite side of it. They really do get damaged. And I'm going to say, this one, after we talked to the kid, there was frustration with work. He smashed it. So it started off with dropping down. I didn't know how to do anything, and so I just got angry. I've also had parents get angry and smash laptops. I had one at Del Norte. Parents are frustrated. They do not understand the technology as much as our teachers have been going through training this year. I've been going through training this year. They've been going through calling the teacher on Fridays and getting as much help as they can. They don't have this assistance at home. And so we do get computers in this shape when we just have frustration. Someone's just about happy.
Is the casualty rate on computers among students higher than with staff?
Yes.
Much higher.
Yes, much higher. I have had maybe 2 staff members broken off, and it's just normal wear and tear. It's not necessarily anything physical. So most of this is through frustration. Parents and students have a lack of prerequisite skills to use a computer. They have learned, they have become more diligent. You can see the efforts they've made over the semester from day 1 to right now. Almost every student has turned in assignments digitally this year. That's amazing. But the first 4 weeks, we couldn't even get that started. And so there has been growth. Can you go back? A little too fast. Expectations for real-time learning to be carried out at home through homework. Most of the work that's happening is done at home with the parents' help. I supervise 8 elementaries and 1 alternative high school. I really love watching the kindergarten classrooms because the parents are always with them, and they're always on that. You at least have 50% of the parents sitting there helping the kids, and they're actually helping other parents online as well with their students. But that real-time learning, if the kid doesn't understand what to do, they just and they shut down those situations. Technology doesn't always do what it's supposed to, and I call it just the master glitch. Sometimes the teacher screen freezes. Sometimes the teacher pops up. And that's just the magic thing that happens. There's no explanation for it sometimes. It just happens. My computer is frozen a couple times. Just by, and I have to get off and get back on. And when I post things, I'm not calling. I've seen a number of teachers just profusely apologize. I'm sorry. Get back on. And for the most part, they've done a good job in getting the kids back in. Internet access, and we've already talked about, is sparse throughout McKinley County. I drive out to Raymond Elementary, is one of my areas. From here to David Speed, it's almost non-existent internet. And you get something outside of the food, and then you get to Raymond, you also have it's patchy. One room for an entire family to learn in multiple devices. I've seen that a number of times where there's 6 kids in a 1-room house, all of them online, and then you start seeing the parents get angry in all 6 classrooms with their parents getting frustrated with this kid trying to keep them online. So it's a lot of chaos in those types of environments, and we have a number of kids. One of my principals talked to me about going home and seeing where a student was, and when they weren't showing up in class, well, they were watching 5 of their siblings. That's why they weren't in the class, because they were taking care while the parents were at work, which is also understandable. Parents are intervening online with other students. One of my favorite classroom visits was 2 parents got in an argument at Jefferson online. One had the TV on, another parent asked the parent to turn off the TV on one, and then they got in an argument. As I walked in, the teacher just hit in the meeting, which I would have done today. I wouldn't have known how to stop, or I would have picked out those families just to separate them. There's things online where there's noise and their students aren't learning, and the parents are frustrated with their own students' learning environment. So we have to stand with other people. And so for the most part, what I've been, my recommendation on that is either take those kids out for that minute and then give them a call afterwards and just talk about that everybody gets to hear these messages. Kindergartners should not hear 2 parents arguing with each other on the television set. And then there's not enough bandwidth to view the video, especially in the county. When you're in Gallup, you'll see a lot of kids, their screens are on, and the teacher can see every little kid's face. When I go to Crown Point, I don't see any kids because the bandwidth in the community is so low. They're able to hear the instruction, but they're not able to show, they can either get the video coming in, but they can't send the video because that just takes too much bandwidth. So that they can't necessarily see the student. So are there goods to, is there a good to distance learning? Absolutely. I don't think we could have done what we've done this year if we didn't get that availability of computers, Microsoft, and all these platforms. Is this the future? I sure hope. I hope it, as Mr. Mortensen said, we were planning to do a mid-school rollout of one-on-one devices this year, and we've already designed a blended learning rubric where we incorporate traditional learning with technology. I'm hoping next year that's what happens, is these skills automatically get put into that and that it's a natural, and the teachers know so much more about it than I even could imagine in the moment. These teachers are computer geniuses that they're focusing into. And so I see a vision for what this is going to be. It's just that we've got to get out of distance learning and hybrid to make that vision. Any questions?
I've got one if no one else does.
Go ahead, Mr. Martinson.
I've talked to Mike Hyatt a little bit about this already, but maybe it's something you guys could think about. When you get all the devices back at the end of the year, can we look into web filters and parental controls or something like that? We, at my house anyways, I mean, after school's over, we'd kick the kids outside and tell them to, they can't have any, they can't come back in until it's dark kind of thing. But then it's all, you talked about the wild, wild west, and we're like, I don't want the wild, wild west
in your house,
in my house a lot of times. And so I would welcome some kind of web filters or, parental controls or something like that.
Absolutely.
Just an idea.
And we do have filters with the students built into the device. Also, they came with the T-Mobile devices, has their own filters.
Okay.
So the kids should not be able to get into anywhere that they're not supposed to be on the internet.
Yeah.
But I also know some kids are a lot smarter than I am.
They're
and
smart.
They can get around that. But we can look into that.
We've
Absolutely.
had to, going up and check on my kids at night. It's like 10 o'clock at night, and my kids up there, my fourth graders, like watching YouTube videos at 10 at night with his headphones on. Like, dude, what?
That's something to look into.
I almost
absolutely.
smashed the computer.
Please don't.
I will.
Please. You just made me sweat a little more.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I do, but these are just random stuff that I wrote down. A couple of them. You say you provided training to teachers and even to yourself, and there wasn't enough training for parents. Isn't there something we can do to do like a recording of parent training, like a I don't know, either with skits or just PowerPoint on showing them how to work with teams with their children, like an actual parent training on how to even simple ones of how to even start a computer and going to the next step, because I think a lot of our elders are trying to go step by step, but there's not, it's good for them too that they're learning technology, but just simple tutorials that we can do and post them so we can have them, and even maybe some in Navajo. And I think we have a lot of grandmas that are raising grandpas and nullies and chays that are raising their grandkids that can maybe watch those, and it doesn't hurt to try. And then the other question I had was, have we monitored some of our teachers that maybe even stressing out our kids a little bit by providing too much work, and just saying, because that's not our school, it's a different, it was the BIE school, but they were saying my kid has 8 math homework, and they're really stressed. They don't even like math no more. And, just those kind of questions and concerns that, we hear, and I don't know who is monitoring those activities, that we could continue to say, this may be a little too much, And my last question is, I don't know if this would be for you or Hyatt, Mr. Hyatt, but, you know, we know that there's kids that have fallen through the crack that we don't know where they're at. We know they're not in BIE schools. We don't know where they're at. They just were enrolled in Gallup McKinley County last year, but now they're not. Who is looking for those kids? Because that was a topic with New Mexico School Board Association meeting that we had, and they were talking about these individuals under the CYFD program, was it, that were helping find those kids, and we could use them as a school district to help us locate some of these kids. So those were just some of my thoughts that I was kind of writing down, but I don't know who could answer them, but I just wanted to
Well,
ask
I
those.
do know, and Mr.
I'll take the last question. You can
Speak
take the
about
first
last
one.
Yes. Can you remind me of your second question, please, Priscilla? The one right
Too much work.
Okay, so I just
or
want
not enough. It could be that too, not
Absolutely.
enough.
So I'm going to say we have 4 directors of instruction, myself being one of them. All 4 of us are in every classroom Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Not every classroom, but we go to our schools. I get to all my schools every 2 weeks, and I observe classrooms. I will tell you, yes, I have seen a kindergartner being on a computer for 7.5 hours, and I walked in the school and the kids were falling over on the laptop. They were exhausted. And I asked, well, what's going on? Well, we need to be on 7.5 hours. Oh, no. And then we started looking at, what does the research say? A kindergartner should be on for 15 minutes, and then you give them independent practice, and if they need help, they can get back on. But you shouldn't have a kid on the computer for 7.5 hours, especially at that age. And so, yes, we have been intervening on those types of things. Mr. Harasic has also asked to see a number of our classrooms, so he can also go in and just look and see what's going, the good, the bad, the ugly of what's happening in virtual learning. But I have been in every single one of my 9 schools' classrooms, and I would say I've seen a lot better than not. I'm really impressed with the teachers' resilience this year and being able to pull this off. I'm very happy with them. But I have seen and I have intervened, there is sometimes too much, especially online learning. And I like computers. And I would be probably one of the students who would most likely think that you would like this if I was still a child. I personally took an online school finance class, and it was the worst class I ever took in my entire life. I'd much rather be in person. Mm-hmm. And part of it is that instantaneous, when you're doing a subject that you just have no clue about, you want answers to your questions. Sometimes it's not available in this platform. Mm-hmm. And so we look for those things as we're going around the district, and that's what the director of instructions actually do. We observe and make sure those things are happening, what you just stated.
Thank
So
you.
yes, on that part I'd happily say yes, we do that.
Ms. Mangalito, on your last question regarding, there's been some media and coverage regarding allegedly 13,000 students missing in New Mexico. That data is highly inaccurate. We were on a phone conference with PED last Friday and found out that their data, they either did not understand their data or they didn't have enough information within their own data to understand what the number actually was. And so it sent this scare within PED and I think across the state that students are missing. And there are students that are missing, but it's not much different than any other year. And so those in our district, we have approximately in the 70s of students that we have not been able to locate out of 12,000, over 12,000. Even though PED was saying there was hundreds in our district, it actually wasn't true. We went back and resubmitted the information, have been working with them to let them know what their own data actually says, and that is highly inaccurate that there's that many students missing. So those students, we do work with CYFD and get that information to them to try to find them. We as schools are the ones that reach out to try to find where students are, and obviously parents check their students out from school too. Sometimes we know where they're going, sometimes the parents don't tell us where they're going. But these 70 students are ones that we have not been able to have any contact with, that we haven't been able to find. Some areas of the state have tried to do it physically, to go to the home, and they got essentially reprimanded by the state for doing that because it's potentially people coming in contact with other people due to COVID. And so that practice has stopped in New Mexico. So we're reliant on technology to try to locate them. We'll continue to work at it in our district as along with the other districts in the state. Hope that answers that question. Thanks. Thank you, Mr. Bell.
Thank you, guys.
Mr.
Uh,
Hyatt.
Mr.
I got
Mr.
some more
Bell,
questions, I'm sorry.
I
You're
had
not
a
off the
question.
hook.
You mentioned trade outs.
Yes, ma'am. Okay.
Because I know at one time when I was visiting, I believe it was Tuhachi Elementary, they were saying that they were having their kids bring back either a broken iPad or whatever they have as elementary students, and they had 0 trade out. So so the student was bringing in their iPad or whatever and leaving with nothing.
And so we have had to redistribute. We've had schools that had more than their fair share of breaks. And so what we do is we just we go get some from David Skeet, for example, and move it over to that school. We have enough in inventory. It's just not necessarily all at one site, and we just do a transfer of inventory when that becomes a problem.
Yeah,
right now, we just did that with Crown Point.
We've seen some delays just because of that. Like all of a sudden there's not enough there because of the breakages. So as Mr. Bell said, we have to move things around. There may be a day delay or a overnight delay before we can get another laptop to those students.
So a student wouldn't go more than a week without.
Oh, absolutely.
Shouldn't. It shouldn't go more than a day or so. It shouldn't be that hard to get computers from other schools.
When the
so.
school, what happens is the principal will give a text or an email to Mr. Stanley. He manages all. He'll pull them from one site and have it sent to the other site by the next day.
Okay.
And it's usually a 24-hour turnover.
Thank you for that. And then the next thing I have is attention as far as student-teacher. Teacher has the child on, and because I've seen a couple relatives. I walk in and they're sitting there with their laptop in front of them and they're on, but on the side there they're playing a game, and they're not even, they're playing something else on their phone or whatever. So how are teachers taught to recognize that the student is doing something other than listening and doing what they're
So on that piece, they would have to, it's part of their questioning strategies. They need to be able to randomly choose students, and they'd be able to find it that way. There's no way to look at the student's screen exactly and see every single screen. One of our teachers just showed something whiteboard about chat there. That would be one example of an area where you can see every single student's screen. So you give them a math problem, and every kid has a whiteboard, and it has, let's say you have 24 kids, and you can see all 24 of them working. But that's not what it looks like most of the time. Each kid sees what's on their screen. The teacher doesn't see what's on their screen. And so that's part of the problem, and I don't think there's a fix to that. That's part of the problem with online learning.
Yeah, okay.
Is you just don't know what they're doing on that other end.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, and Merry Christmas.
Well, Mr. Schaaf had a question.
No.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Mr. Hyatt, hasn't our enrollment gone up this year?
It has gone up due to some of our online opportunities, but from students that were enrolled last year, overall it's gone up, but there are still some students within that switch from one year to the next that we still haven't been able to find, which is again typical for each year, just because we can't get a hold of the parents.
And just my biggest concern during this, just as a last note, is over 1,500 kids don't have any internet service at home, which is approximately 50% of our student population. And so they're not getting anything at this time.
Well, those are students that could be going another location, they just can't get it in their home.
They can't get it in their home.
Right, so they can go to a spot where there's Wi-Fi and those types of things, but that's not ideal.
If they have family to take them. Some are
Correct, right, yeah. I mean, there's a whole other set of complications
That
with
was going to be, you saying what you just said, I know there was families who would just kind of drop their child off if they lived kind of close from their home to the dirt road where the bus actually parked, and they would do their work there. But with this weather being as cold as it is, are we seeing a decrease in students, being dropped off at the school or, at a bus site?
Well, we don't have any students but the special needs students being brought to school anymore, so they're not being picked up. So we'd have to ask Mr. Bond that question.
I can't answer this with
What I'm asking is, I know that there's some students got dropped off where the bus is parked, and they would just kind of sit outside the bus and do their work like that when it was warmer.
Okay.
Or even outside the school, they would just walk to the school, Church Rock, and just do their work right outside the school. But with this weather being as cold as it is, are we seeing a drop in students coming
to use those devices?
Yeah.
Mr. Hyde?
Mr. Mitchell, we have seen a decrease in the last few weeks with respect to attendance. And I think that probably corresponds with the temperature outside, because a lot of students come and they're in car to the back of a vehicle parked near the school buses, or they're coming to the schools, or they're going to somebody else's house, or whatever it might be. So when roads are bad, when weather is bad, it's obvious that we're going to have a decrease in enrollment because those students can't get to a place where they can get internet. Overall, we've actually been doing really good with attendance given the situation in comparison to other large school districts. We were around close to 92% attendance up until the 40th day. Since then, we've dropped to 88%. And I suspect that even with this snowstorm, it's going to drop a little bit more. So again, that we want as many students as possible, and our expectations have been set higher than most districts, and that's probably why we have a higher attendance rate. But nonetheless, we still want to make efforts to try to figure out how we service these students that can't get to a location where they have internet. We've already been denied multiple times by the state to allow those students to come to school, and so the options are becoming extremely narrow for those students. So there has been some work done with paper packets again, because that's all we're left to do. We simply cannot use technology in some circumstances.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. White is next. She's going to give an update on the cultural ed department and the things that are happening with Indian education.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everybody. Mr. Hyatt, Mr. Mortensen, members of the board.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Happy holidays.
Okay. You can tell we're all teachers of some type or another here. Okay. All the challenges that you've heard about virtual learning, we're looking at that. We also have the same challenges in the Navajo culture program or Navajo language program, but we're working hard to make that into a positive. For example, the electronic lesson plans, where we're right now there's a team of teachers who are recording their lessons and saying words in the Navajo language all the way from K through 8, and also in the high school courses of Navajo 1, Navajo 2, Government and History. And we're putting that electronically onto a system. Right now it's in SharePoint, so that if a teacher is absent, a teacher's on sick leave, there's already a bank of lessons and a bank of lesson plans that can be done, so that we're not putting our kids sitting there looking at the screen or whatever. So that way we're building sustainability in the virtual setting is what we're doing. And that in and of itself is very hard, because like you said, the teachers had to learn technology, our kids had to learn, but I think we're halfway through the school year. I think we've managed a lot, we've learned a lot, and we're moving forward. So we're doing that, and I'm happy to say that all of our schools, beginning second semester, will have at least one Navajo language teacher in each school. And some of them are teaching remotely, some of them are teaching in a hybrid setting, so that all kids get a chance to learn the language. The only problem we have is recruiting for a Zuni teacher, a Zuni language teacher. Those are even more rarer than what we have for Navajo. So that's where we're doing, and then I appreciate Ms. Manuelito's questions about students and their social emotional learning. Our traditional interventionist, Ms. Nez, has really stepped up. She's working with counseling students in a virtual setting, and she's brought that piece there, and working with parents as well, and on an as needed basis. She's also making some public service announcements using the Navajo language, so she's really out there working with the social worker and the counseling department. So we're looking at more of how we can, like Ms. Manuelito says, survey our students to really see what the needs are. So we're looking at another part through the counseling department, looking at what else can we do beyond what we're doing right now, because in trying to get support services for our students. So that is basically in our counseling area, our language courses. And then I know one of the things we mentioned in the beginning of the school year was that in prior years we had the language festival, and that was very popular for a lot of our students and our parents. And because of our current pandemic, we can't bring people together. So we brainstormed and figured out how we're going to do this. And it's going to be called a Heritage Language Knowledge Showcase, and it's going to be all virtual. Sort of like a Knowledge Bowl kind of setting, but in a virtual setting. So we're still working out what that would look like. And then as we know, parents help their kids too. So we're looking at a parent portal as well. And we realize that our parents are also learning the language along with their kids when the kids are learning. So it's good. It's to our advantage that they have the support at home. So once we figure out what our knowledge showcase would look like, we're going to publicize that, and it's going to be a first time around. Never done a virtual knowledge bowl before, or virtual heritage language festival, but we're looking at how can we do this and get more students and their parents involved. So that's just a real brief report. You guys have any questions or?
Mr. Mortensen and Dr. White, thank you. One of the things that I'm really impressed with, Shamasani Yaja, she's doing kindergarten, our preschool, and this is with the BIE school, but I really I had to kind of go into class with her a couple of times, and it was virtual. And the thing I liked about it was that the teacher taught from the beginning, and then the last 15 minutes, 10 minutes, that's a culture teacher, his name is Mr. Gibson. He gets on and does his Navajo lesson part with the kids. So it's kind of a joint effort. They're kind of both sharing that time frame together. But the kids get to hear, like if the teacher talked about purple or red color or squiggly lines or shapes, he would kind of use that color, the same lessons, and use it during his culture classes. So he'll talk about purple in Navajo or numbers or whatever. If she's talking about circles, he will reinforce her lesson in Navajo with that. And I thought that was cute that they were doing that kind of collaboration together. But the time and it's all every Monday through Thursday that they have that time together. So every day she has some kind of Navajo and he always opens up by saying Ya te pene. So my grandbaby knows that now. She comes in and she says Ya te pene masane. And it's neat that they're working that together. But I think one of the other thing I want to mention is on Facebook a couple of times I've seen a virtual powwow, and that would be kind of neat for our kids to kind of not a powwow, but like a what do we call it? A cultural performance online, and let the kids showcase themselves with their traditional dances. So that would be something I wanted to mention too. But and I'm thankful that we're continuing to work on virtual learning with our bilingual education programs. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll have Sharma Munoz, principal of McKinley Academy. She has provided several reports to you, and she is here to give a last report for this year at least. And so thank you, Sharma, for being here. Go ahead.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Superintendent and board members. Thank you for having me. Mr. Hyatt kind of went over some of the data, but I'd like to take it just a little bit deeper because the most common question that I get asked from board members and community members is, who are your students? Where do they come from? So I'd like to go into that a little bit. As I've told you before, this is year 3 of McKinley Academy. We have 3 main goals. Number 1 is that we get our students graduated from their home schools on time with a high school diploma. Our number 2 goal is we try to get every student either an associate degree or we help them accumulate as many college credits as possible before they graduate. And number 3, we have the other goal of helping students become independent learners and to learn how to successfully navigate college on their own. So right now we have 416 students. In year 1 we had 250. Year 2 we had 360. Right now we're at 416. So you can see our junior class is at 125. The next largest class is sophomores, 119, seniors, 94, and 78 freshmen. We service students up at UNM. Students come from Navajo Pine, Tohatchee, Crown Point, Theroux, Rama, Gallup and Miamura. NTU is also a sister school of McKinley Academy, and they service Crown Point and Sayagai students. Demographics, tribal codes, mostly Navajo students, although there are a few Zuni, Laguna, and other. Predominantly female, and this trend just seems to be, I see it rising every year, a little more females. Home languages, predominantly English, although there's over 100 students that claim Navajo as their home language. And you can see there's a variety of other language. Greek, Filipino, Arabic. So it just kind of tells you who our students are. All of our students have checked out laptops as they have every year. If we can go back to that slide. 188 students have checked out hotspots this year. We had 0 students on our waiting list. And even though there's none on our waiting list and we have 188 who did check out hotspots, some still have a little bit of trouble. We have about 12 students we've identified that really struggle to get internet. And what they're doing is they're going to local schools, whether it be David Skeets or in front of a chapter house or coming into the local library, parking somewhere where they get better access. Some of them meet the buses at the Mustang south of town. Different methods of getting internet access for those who aren't successful with a hotspot. So number of college credits, I thought this was interesting because it shows you just how much more we're servicing the students providing college classes. Last spring, with coronavirus, when it first started, we had students enrolled in 2,130 college credits, where this year there's over 3,700. So we had a big increase, students wanting to come in and take more college classes if they were already there, or come in from regular high schools and take a lot of college credits. This shows over the 3 years we've been there. The first year in 2019, 4 kids graduated with an associate degree, 0 with 2 associate degrees. Last year we had 20 graduate with the associate degree, 2 with 2 associate degrees. That's general studies and liberal arts. And then this year, our seniors are on track to graduate 46 of them with associates, 14 with 2 associates. So if you look at those percentages, 49% of our seniors are graduating with an associate degree. I think that's pretty good. I mean,
Wow.
that's a great service to our kids of Gallup McKinley County Schools. If you go back to that slide just for a second, our projection for next year, well, I can just talk about it. Our projection for next year, we think those rates are going to be a lot higher because next year's seniors are the graduates who started with us as freshmen. So those are the kids that have been with us for 4 years. We expect that number to be a lot higher. I would think closer to 75% get associate degrees and upwards of 30-40% with double associates. And this just shows how big our staff is. 1 principal, a half-time SLI, 2 counselors, 2 secretaries, custodian, 1 special ed teacher. We do share some gate teachers around the district. 4 freshman teachers that teach the core, and then 4 upper class teachers that teach grades 10 through 12 for students who aren't quite ready to take a full load of college. Maybe they need a high school math class and then they take college, or maybe they need the high school English and they take college for the rest. And what this means for families, I've shown this slide before, but I think this really tells a lot. Students are prepared for college. We can help them reduce the amount of time they spend in college to get a bachelor's degree, and we ensure student success at future universities because we kind of guide them, teach them the ropes, teach them how to navigate on their own, and of course, students will incur less student debt in the long run. So I'm open for any questions.
Are there any questions from anybody here?
Mr. Mortensen, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Munoz, for this report. I've been very curious on how the progress of McKinley Academy has been going, and I'm glad to see that we're going up, and it's going to be exciting. I mean, it's already exciting to see some of our kids earning 2 degrees, and I think personally speaking, I can see a huge impact that this has made on my own child, which I never thought I would, but you know, it's just amazing what his growth is through education, higher education. But I think one of the things that we really want, or I really want us as a board and as a district to continue to make this program a success and continue to support it as much as we can. And I think that with us supporting it, we're at the same time definitely supporting our students, and that's what we want. And I appreciate your report. I appreciate the update and the good news and what you're doing and your staff is doing up at McKinley Academy. So yeah, thank you for all you're doing.
Anybody else? Great.
Just
Thank
to-
you. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Just to comment, thank you for all you're doing for the students. You and the staff, you're doing a great job. Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate it too. Thank you. You and Mr. Makovich have just, anyways, I got a special place in my heart for you for the, golly, there's no way to underestimate or overestimate the hours they've spent messing around with my kid.
I've heard Mr. Makovich's name so many times. He's made a huge impact on our students. So thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And I was just, I just want to say that, you know, everything that's going on with the McKinley Academy is, you know, seems to be really going well. You know, I know that Board Member Manuelito's son, you know, took classes up there, and he's now in college, and all his course credits from what he had from the UNM, I mean, with you guys, they all transferred, which was one of the things I kind of worried about at the beginning. But to hear that, you know, I'm thinking that you guys are doing a very successful job up there. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your support.
Thank you, Sherman.
All right, the next section in our agenda is the notices and communications. I'll let you look through those on your own. It has some important dates and dates of our important dates from the calendar, school board calendar, and things going forward. The next section here is number 6, new business. New business 6A, approval to authorize for specified GMCS administrative staff to sign documents and conduct business on behalf of the district. Is there any information on this? Thank you, Javon.
Mr. Mortensen, members of the board, you may have noted that our controller, Mystica Bay, retired earlier this year. And so we've hired a new controller, and her name is Jennifer Lee. And so it's just switching out of those 2 individuals as authorized.
Great. Okay, any other questions? Okay, is there a motion on the table for 6A?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, second. Joan, motion, please roll call for 6A, approval to authorize for specified GMCS administrative staff to sign documents and conduct business on behalf of the district.
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
Miss Manuelito?
Yes.
Mr. Shaw?
Yes.
Mr. Mortensen?
Yes. The next item is 6B, approval of GMCS Indian policies and procedures for 21-22 school year. Are there any questions or anything on this item?
Mr. Mortensen, I'd like to go ahead and motion to approve. We got the policy and procedure and also reviewing it. Thank you.
Okay, and a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. Roll call, please, Joan.
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Miss Manuelito,
Yes.
Mr. Shaw,
Yes.
Mr. Mortensen.
Yes. And the last item, 6C, approval of the listing and sale of the EDC building. That's the building down on Aztec and I guess Ford, there behind Lowe's Shopping Center. Are there any questions? Mr. Hyatt, go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. Mortensen, members of the board, as you know, we are starting to move maintenance, our R&D, and also our Educational Development Center, or we refer to it as EDC, which is the building that Mr. Mortensen just mentioned, moving that to the old site where Rocky View Elementary used to be. That building is about ready for EDC to move into in January. And this particular building is not in a location, and the building is not a facility that we can use as a school district. The bus access is just not available at that location. Also, the vagrant population that's in that area. There's a host of reasons why this particular piece of property would not be beneficial for the district, and it is our recommendation that we go through the process with the state of New Mexico to appraise it, to list it, and to sell it for the appraised value.
Great. Any questions? Anybody? I played a lot of basketball over there back in my day. Behind Wilson.
Mr. Mortensen and Mr. Hyatt, where do these, once we sell it, where pot of money does this funding go into?
It's operational dollars that we can use for various things, but we still need to do some work over at the old Rocky View building to get it prepared for R&D and also transportation also. We're planning to put the buses and everything in one location, so we still need some more funds to be able to pull that off.
Thank you.
If you move the buses over there, will that mean that things will change here on Boardman as well?
We may come to you looking to sell that piece of property, which is an odd piece of property, and we'll also have all of these facilities over here on the south side of Miyamura. Most of them will not be needed anymore, most likely.
With that, Mr. Mortensen, I motion to approve.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Second. All right. Joan, the
Would you
motion is for
recognize-
the approval of the listing and sale of the EDC building? Oh, I'm sorry. Can we have them be co-seconders? They were both so good. It's hard for me to choose. It's like choosing which is my favorite kid. Mr. Schaaf, go ahead. You can have it this time. We'll give it to you next time, Kevin.
Roll call.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Miss Manuelito,
Yes.
Mr. Shaw,
Yes.
Mr. Mortensen.
Yes. All right, and we voted earlier to skip the executive session today. There's no new business for that. And so, Mr. Mitchell, here's your chance. We're looking for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Perfect. All right, in a second?
Second.
By Mr. Schaaf. Roll call, please.
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Miss Manuelito,
Before we adjourn, I want to say Merry Christmas to all of you guys, to our staff, to our students, to our parents, and all of you guys here. Thank you for all you do. Yes.
Mr. Shaw,
Yes.
Mr. Mortensen.
Yes.
2:48.
Thank you very much. We're adjourned.